If you live in South Africa, you may have seen one of these ads recently.
Burning releases the majority of harmful chemicals found in cigarette smoke. Scientifically substantiated smoke-free alternatives are a much better choice than continued smoking. If you don't smoke, don't start. If you do smoke, quit. If you don't quit, change. Learn more about smoke-free alternatives.
But although these ads may seem like your standard harmless anti-smoking PSA, there is a lot more to them when you scratch beneath the surface. And that is exactly what we're going to do today in this video. So lately I've been seeing a lot of these ads all over my different social media profiles, on YouTube, on Instagram. I've even heard about people seeing them on TikTok, and they're all from the same campaign, UNSMOKE South Africa. And a lot of these ads emphasize the fact that burning tobacco is the most harmful part and that they want a smoke-free future for South Africa. And I mean, on the face of it, there's nothing wrong with these ads, but I cannot tell you why. I just had a funny feeling about them, a sneaking suspicion. And when I saw in the corner of one of these ads that they were sponsored or funded by Philip Morris International, my suspicions grew even deeper. So I started to investigate. Philip Morris International is behind these ads and also behind the wider UNSMOKE South Africa campaign, including their website and all of their targeted marketing across all of their different platforms. And if you don't already know who Philip Morris is, they are one of the largest international tobacco companies, responsible for brands like Marlboro cigarettes. So why on earth would a cigarette company, especially such a large one, be behind a campaign that wants to unsmoke the country? Well, Philip Morris International has obviously been feeling the effects of many countries across the world imposing tighter and stricter regulations around the smoking of cigarettes. And as a result, Philip Morris International have pivoted towards smoke-free alternatives. And you can see this really clearly if you go onto the Philip Morris International website. If you go on there, you can not really see anything about their traditional cigarette brands like Marlboro, but what you will see is a very heavy emphasis on their smoke-free alternative products. Philip Morris International, or PMI as I'll be calling them going forward in this video, have two main what they call smoke-free products. Those are their IQOS heated tobacco products, as well as their IQOS Vive e-vapor product. Their heated tobacco products, or HTPs, were first launched in 2016. And the basic idea behind how these products work is that tobacco is heated rather than burnt in order to release the nicotine found within it. Because the tobacco is heated to a lower level than with traditional cigarettes, Philip Morris International claims that fewer harmful chemicals are released from the tobacco. And PMI claims that these HTPs are able to deliver nicotine without ash, fire, or smoke. Although personally, just as an aside, I find PMI's claim that these products are smoke-free to be a little bit ridiculous, because if you've ever been around someone or you yourself use one of these HTP devices, you know that they not only create smoke, but the smoke is just like worse than cigarette smoke in terms of the smell. Anyway, despite that, PMI brands this as one of their smoke-free alternative products. Philip Morris's other smoke-free product is, like I mentioned, the IQOS Vive device. And this essentially is Philip Morris International's version of a vape or an e-cigarette. These e-vapor devices still contain nicotine that is extracted from tobacco leaves. However, instead of heating or burning tobacco, they vaporize a liquid solution containing the nicotine plus any flavoring that is added. So these are Philip Morris International's new flagship products, the ones that they are really trying to push into the market and get more people to start using. And this is particularly why their ads, the UNSMOKE South Africa campaign ads, particularly focus on the dangers of burning tobacco. Because, as I've described, none of their IQOS products actually burn or facilitate the combustion of tobacco. This is also why their ads say things like this.
Burning releases the majority of harmful chemicals found in cigarette smoke.
You would think that might explain it, the reason why a huge international tobacco company like PMI would be promoting these UNSMOKE South Africa campaign ads is because they have smoke-free alternative products that they are also trying to push. However, that is not where our story ends, because while most of these UNSMOKE South Africa ads focus on this idea of the burning of tobacco being particularly dangerous, some of them deviate from that message a bit. And I came across one of these ads on my Instagram account the other day.
The ad reads, 82% of nicotine and tobacco users believe their views should be considered when it comes to regulations.
And this was the point where things really started clicking in my brain, because this ad in particular was focused on regulation. In South Africa and in a number of other countries, there has been very strict and stringent regulation on the marketing and promotion and sale and distribution of cigarettes for a very long time. However, vapes, e-cigarettes, and heated tobacco products are much newer than cigarettes, and as such, in a lot of places, don't face the same stringent regulations, and that is true of South Africa as well. However, as these devices have become more and more popular, they have started to draw the attention of regulators. Currently in South Africa, there are absolutely no regulations regarding the production and distribution of vaping-related products, and the government has identified this as a problem that needs to be addressed. Our government is currently going through the process of updating our current smoking regulation in order to include vapes and e-cigarette devices. Importantly, the new legislation the government is proposing is not aimed at banning the use of these products amongst adults, but rather is aimed at minimizing their use by the non-smoking youth. And this will be done through the regulation of advertising and the management of where these products can be used and sold. The focus on the youth is very understandable because currently in South Africa, vapes and e-cigarette devices are incredibly and worryingly accessible to children and teenagers who are taking up the habit in mass amounts. In November of 2022, a professor from the University of Cape Town conducted a study of 5,500 students at a private school in Cape Town and found that 3 in 10 learners were using an electronic vaping device within an hour of getting up in the morning, and that nearly a quarter of these students could not get through the day without using a vaping device. The fact that so many young people are using electronic vaping devices is incredibly worrying because these were prior non-smokers who likely would not have smoked had it not been for these vaping devices. And unfortunately, the companies that make and distribute these vapes and non-cigarette alternative nicotine products are actually pushing this and specifically encouraging the youth to take up and use these products. These products are incredibly accessible online, with many websites allowing you to order a vape without even so much as suggesting that you would need to be over the age of 18 to do so, and never once stopping to check for ID. The products come in fun, bright packaging and in interesting flavors that really appeal to children, although a lot of adults get hooked on these flavors and the packaging as well. And it even goes beyond just that, because in 2019, Philip Morris International was found to be using social media influencers to market their IQOS devices to young people. So these worrying developments with regards to teenagers using these products are a huge reason why the government is trying to implement this new regulation into a previously completely unregulated industry. However, not everyone wants to see this regulation pushed through. The implementation of new regulations in the e-vapor and heated tobacco products industries will undoubtedly have a severe negative effect on companies like PMI, which are really trying to push their smoke-free alternative products at the moment. And this gives PMI a huge incentive to push back against these regulations as much as possible. And now all the puzzle pieces fit together. This is the goal of the UNSMOKE South Africa campaign, and this is why it has been funded by Philip Morris International. Because while most of their ads do not explicitly mention regulation, some of them do.
These are just 2 of the ads that I've seen on Instagram, and I'm sure there's many more.
Add your voice. Let's UNSMOKE South Africa together.
And when you go to the UNSMOKE South Africa campaign website, it becomes very clear that there is an agenda being pushed there. And that agenda is to control the narrative regarding the implementation of new regulations onto e-vapor and heated tobacco products in South Africa, and importantly, to push back the implementation of any stringent and harsh regulation of these products. Of course, though, PMI doesn't just outright say that they do not want the industry to be regulated at all and that they are against all regulations. They have approached this in a very particular way, crafting particular arguments in order to try and support their agenda. The main argument from PMI is that cigarette alternatives are far healthier than traditional cigarettes that actually involve the combustion of tobacco. And while they admit that some regulation may be necessary, they want heated tobacco products and vapes to be treated very differently from the way that cigarettes are treated. And this seems to be a message that they are trying to push very strongly.
I'm literally just in the middle of editing this video, but I was on News 24 and I came across a sponsored post called Top 6 Myths and FAQs About Smoke-Free Alternatives. And would you guess it's sponsored by Philip Morris International as part of the UNSMOKE South Africa campaign. And basically they go through all these various myths about smoke-free alternative products. I just thought it was interesting because it really shows that these ads are literally everywhere, and Philip Morris International is promoting this UNSMOKE South Africa campaign literally everywhere they can, and really again like pushing this narrative of the fact that nicotine is not that harmful and that it's the burning of the tobacco that is the most harmful part of cigarettes.
And just as an aside, I briefly tweeted about this issue, kind of just highlighting some of the things that I've already mentioned in this video and the links between Philip Morris International and this UNSMOKE South Africa campaign. And when I tweeted that out, I very quickly received a response from a member of the International Network for Nicotine Consumer Organizations. The account that responded to me obviously had quite strong feelings about the regulation of vaping and cigarette alternative products. In addition to responding to me, this account clearly tweets a lot about vaping and cigarette alternative regulation and legislation. And just from a brief scan of their tweets, it was very clear to see that they were pushing a message that was very similar to Philip Morris International, and particularly this idea that vapes and alternative products to cigarettes are far, far healthier than cigarettes, and specifically this idea that these products should be promoted and that any attempt to reduce the accessibility of these products would be incredibly immoral. The account has retweeted tweets saying things like the tobacco industry has saved more lives than the WHO, and it is also focused on the idea that teen vaping has eliminated teen smoking and has really downplayed any concerns regarding children and teenagers having very easy access to these vaping devices. And as I said, the person who responded to me was a member of the International Network of Nicotine Consumer Organizations. So I went onto that website for the INNCO. And what I found on the website is that they claim to receive no funding from the vapor or tobacco industries. However, one paragraph later, they state that they are funded by the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World, and that the Foundation for a Smoke-Free World was funded by a 12-year grant from Philip Morris International. Now, the organization really did emphasize on their website that they are completely independent and that the funding from PMI in no way affects them or their recommendations or their work, but I still find it all highly suspicious. But putting aside any suspicions that I may have, let's evaluate their argument. So their argument is that vaping and heated tobacco products are safer and must be promoted because not doing so would be immoral. Is this actually true? Well, from the research that I've done into the subject, it seems to be a little complicated, because while it is generally widely accepted that heated tobacco products and vapes are safer than cigarettes, there is some conflicting evidence. I looked at a 2021 analysis that was an updated overview of e-cigarette impact on human health. And this analysis essentially found that more research into the safety of vapes and the potential long-term effects of vaping was needed. They said that the composition of e-liquids requires stricter regulation, as they can be easily bought online and many incidences of mislabeling have been detected, which can seriously affect consumers' health. Beyond their unknown long-term effects on human health, the extended list of appealing flavors available seems to attract new never smokers, which is especially worrying among young users. Additionally, there is still a lack of evidence of e-cigarette consumption as a smoking cessation method. Indeed, e-cigarettes containing nicotine may relieve the craving for smoking, but not the conventional cigarette smoking habit. So while yes, these e-cigarettes and vaping devices are probably a much better alternative for those who were smoking anyway, there is still a significant risk that these products, through being promoted by organizations like Philip Morris International, are attracting those who have never smoked before to use them, particularly the youth. Well, what about heated tobacco as an alternative? This is one of PMI's other flagship products, their heated tobacco devices. They don't really have the same issues as e-cigarettes and vaping devices with the colorful packaging and the flavors attracting people who have never smoked before, as they are just heated tobacco. There's no flavored really element there. However, most of the studies conducted into the safety of these products have been conducted by PMI themselves. From this article in The Conversation about a new review that looked into the risks and benefits of heated tobacco, it says much of the research into the safety of heated tobacco comes from Philip Morris International, which applied for IQOS to be sold as a reduced exposure and reduced risk tobacco product in the US. In 2019, the US allowed IQOS to be marketed as a reduced exposure product. The review concluded that switching completely from the conventional cigarettes to the IQOS system significantly reduces your body's exposure to harmful or potentially harmful chemicals. The reduced risk application failed because the evidence is not sufficient to demonstrate substantiation of either of the claims about the reduced risk of tobacco-related disease or harm. We need more evidence to be sure about how using heated tobacco affects people's health. So nothing really conclusive there either. And the general consensus from the research that I have done seems to be that for both e-cigarettes and vaping devices, as well as heated tobacco products, there needs to be a lot more independent research into these products and their safety, particularly their long-term impacts and effects. So while it may be the case that these products can provide a healthier alternative to smoking for those who already smoke, they are far from risk-free. And there are still many questions about the long-term impact of these products on people's health. This makes it vital to ensure that people, and particularly children and teenagers, are not taking up the use of these cigarette alternatives because they see them as harmless. And of course, adults should be able to make their own choices and their own decisions regarding what they want to do with their bodies, whether that be vaping, smoking cigarettes, or using heated tobacco products. I myself have many friends who use vapes or heated tobacco products, or who even still smoke cigarettes. And I mean, even I on occasion have used a disposable vape on a night out or borrowed a friend's. So I'm definitely not going to judge anyone who uses any of these products or who would be worried that regulation could potentially prevent them from using these products. But I also know of far too many teenagers who vape regularly, who can't get through the school day without using a vape, and do not understand the consequences that it could have on their long-term health. I have also seen how easily accessible and how tempting these products are. I mean, I personally never thought that I would be interested in vaping, but you hear about all the cool and interesting flavors, and suddenly it becomes really appealing to test it out, to just try. And I can only imagine how much more tempting that must be for a teenager who is under pressure to seem cool in front of their friends. And while introducing regulation into the e-cigarette industry will not stop these problems entirely, it can definitely help. So again, while adults should be making their own informed decisions when it comes to the use of cigarettes and vaping products, there is a clear need for regulation, and especially regulation that is going to make these products less accessible to teenagers and children. And importantly, this regulation should be guided by the best available scientific research and should be implemented for the benefit of the nation and the population as a whole. It should not be guided by companies like Philip Morris International that have a vested interest in selling as many of these products as possible. And that is why I made this video, because I believe that Philip Morris International is trying to shape the conversation around regulation of e-cigarettes and vaping devices in South Africa. And I believe they are doing so for their own reasons, because they have their own financial agenda. And while we are not going to stop Philip Morris International from running these campaigns and pushing out these Unsmoke South Africa ads wherever possible, at least we can know what they're doing. At least we can be aware of the agenda that they have and why they are pushing the messaging that they are.